The luxury showroom buzzed with excitement as journalists, investors, and wealthy collectors gathered around the newest supercar on display. Bright lights reflected off its polished silver body, while cameras flashed from every direction. It was supposed to be another glamorous product launch led by the company's confident CEO, Victoria Hale, a woman famous for making impossible business deals and never losing a public challenge. Near the back of the crowd stood Ethan Brooks, a quiet single father in his late 30s. His faded denim jacket and worn boots made him look completely out of place among the expensive suits and designer dresses. He had only come because he had received a last-minute invitation from an old mechanic friend who believed Ethan deserved to see the car. Victoria noticed him almost immediately. She walked across the showroom with a confident smile, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The crowd instinctively moved aside, sensing that something entertaining was about to happen. "You look like someone who wandered into the wrong building," she said with a playful but cutting smile. A few guests laughed. Ethan simply smiled back. "Maybe." Her eyes drifted toward the old pickup truck keys in his hand before she looked back at him. "So tell me," she continued loudly enough for everyone to hear, "do you even know how to start a machine like this?" "I know engines," Ethan answered calmly. The confidence in his voice caught a few people off guard. Victoria raised an eyebrow before signaling for one of her assistants, who placed a metal briefcase on the display table. She flipped it open, revealing stacks of cash. $1 million, she announced. "I bet you can't even start my car." The room fell silent. Everyone expected Ethan to walk away, embarrassed. Instead, he looked at the supercar with quiet curiosity rather than excitement. "I don't need your money," he said. Victoria folded her arms. "Then what are you afraid of?" Ethan met her eyes without raising his voice. "I'm not afraid of failing." He paused for a second, glancing at the engine compartment hidden beneath the sleek bodywork. "I'm wondering whether you actually know what's under that hood." The smile on Victoria's face faded for the first time that evening. The room, which had been filled with laughter only moments earlier, became unusually quiet. Investors exchanged curious glances, and several reporters lifted their cameras, sensing that the conversation had taken an unexpected turn. Victoria stepped closer to the silver prototype. "I know every bolt in this car," she replied confidently. "After all, I'm the CEO." Ethan nodded politely but didn't argue. Being the CEO doesn't always mean knowing who solved the hardest problems. A faint murmur spread through the audience. Victoria's confidence wavered for only a second before she tossed him the smart key. "Fine," she said. "Start it." Ethan caught the key but made no move toward the driver's seat. Instead, he slowly walked around the car, studying its body lines, air vents, and cooling system. His eyes paused on the rear panel for a moment before he smiled almost to himself. "Interesting," he whispered. Victoria crossed her arms impatiently. "Planning to admire it all night?" "No," Ethan answered. "Just making sure it hasn't changed." Those words confused everyone. He pressed a hidden latch beneath the rear panel, exposing the engine bay. Several engineers in the audience looked surprised. It wasn't an obvious release, and very few people outside the company knew where it was located. Ethan leaned closer, examining the engine without touching anything. "It still uses the same intake layout," he said quietly. "Even the support brackets are almost identical." Victoria frowned. "What are you talking about?" Instead of answering, Ethan gently closed the panel and walked to the driver's door. He settled into the seat with the calm confidence of someone returning to a familiar place rather than sitting in an expensive prototype for the first time. The showroom became completely silent. He placed one hand on the steering wheel and the other near the start button. Then he looked through the windshield at Victoria. "I hope this bet doesn't embarrass you," he said softly. Before anyone could respond, his finger moved toward the ignition button, leaving the entire room holding its breath. Ethan pressed the start button, but nothing happened. A few people in the audience laughed quietly. Victoria couldn't hide her satisfaction. "I thought you knew engines," she said with a smug smile. Ethan remained calm. He glanced at the dashboard, reading a series of warning messages that most people wouldn't have understood. Instead of pressing the button again, he switched the car off completely, waited a few seconds, and reached beneath the steering column. He adjusted a small connector that had come loose during transport, then returned to the driver's seat. "This should do it," he murmured. He pressed the brake and touched the start button once more. The showroom instantly filled with the smooth, deep growl of the handcrafted engine. It settled into a steady idle, powerful yet refined, and the crowd fell completely silent. Even the company's own engineers stared at the car in disbelief. Victoria's confident expression disappeared. "How?" she whispered. Ethan stepped out of the car and handed her the key without celebrating. "The engine was never the problem," he said. "A loose electrical connector interrupted the startup sequence. The system was protecting itself." One of the senior engineers rushed forward and checked the connector. After a few moments, he slowly nodded. "He's right." Whispers spread across the room. Victoria looked at Ethan with growing curiosity. "You figured that out in less than a minute." Ethan smiled gently. "I've spent most of my life solving problems that couldn't be fixed by replacing expensive parts." She looked at him differently now, no longer seeing an ordinary man in worn clothes. "You still haven't answered my question," she said quietly. "How did you know exactly where to look?" Ethan hesitated before speaking. "Because years ago, before anyone had heard of this company, I spent countless nights helping design an engine with the same core architecture. I never cared about recognition. I just wanted to build something reliable." The room froze. Victoria stared at him, trying to process his words. For the first time that evening, she wondered if the stranger she had publicly underestimated knew far more about her company's greatest achievement than she ever imagined.